Okay, section 6.1. This section is going to be dealing with radical expressions in the graphs and what they look like. The first problem is going to give you a radical expression such as this. F of x equals the square root of 2x plus 3. And it's going to want you to find the domain of this expression. Well, the domain simply means, again, the domain is the x values. So I need to be considering that this is a square root, and what's underneath here has to be greater than or equal to 0. In other words, it needs to be positive. You don't want what's underneath here to end up being a negative number, because then you'll have the square root of a negative, which is not a real number. So what we need to do is set up whatever is underneath the radical, underneath that square root, set it up as greater than or equal to 0, and then solve it for the x. So in this case, I would need to subtract the 3 from both sides. So now I have 2x is greater than or equal to negative 3, and then divide it by 2. So x is greater than or equal to negative 3 over 2. And this will be a multiple choice question. They're all going to have the negative 3 over 2 as the solution, so you need to make sure that you're looking for that correct symbol. X needs to be greater than or equal to this number right here, because that's what's going to make what's underneath here end up positive. Now, for the rest of these problems, it's simply going to be plugging into the y equals. For instance, number 2 will look like this. It's going to say graph this function. F of x equals 4 square roots of x. So first of all, let's just go to our y equals. I'm going to clear everything out. Now let's just see what the standard square root of x does. That's going to kind of give us a clue as to what the shape of all these is going to be, and then the number that is outside of these radicals will move it or shift it or flip it upside down, different things like that. But first of all, let's just look at what the standard square root of x looks like. So on your calculator, you'll hit the second, and then if you look above x squared, there's that square root symbol. So punch in your square root and then the x, and let's graph that and look and see what it looks like. That is what the standard square root of x graph is going to look like. So that's going to be the shape of it. So on number 2, let's look so let's go back to y equals and clear it out. Let's see what this 4 in front of that square root will do. So I'm going to have 4 square root of x. So let's type in 4 second square root x and graph that. So putting the 4 in front of that square root of x simply just made this shape the same shape, but it just made it go up faster. It made it steeper. So let's see which one of these will look like this. So when we're looking, the only one that is the square root shape that goes up steeper than normal would be this D answer. All right, number 3, let's look what putting the negative 2 in front of that square root symbol looks like. So I'll just type in negative 2. So there's the negative 2 square root x, and graph that. Let's see what this one looks like. So the negative 2 reflected that across the x-axis, or we could say just flip that square root shape upside down. So let's look at which one of these graphs best matches ours. The only one that reflected the square root shape across the x-axis is this B one. All right, number 4 is exactly like number 2 was. It's just a 5 in front of it instead of a 4. So it's going to be that same shape. All right, let's look at number 5. It says to graph the square root of x plus 7. So this time there's a number underneath this square root symbol with the x. So let's see what that number does. So go to your y equals and clear it out. So I want to type in second square root, then underneath the square root, I'm going to have x plus 7. And let's see what that does. Well, look what that did. This plus 7 actually shifted. Remember, the original square root starts right here and has that shape, just like this one. So that plus 7 underneath the radical actually shifted it to the left 7 and put its starting point over here. So let's look at which one of these shifted the graph, same shape, so it's still going to have the same shape, but shifted to the left. This one shifted to the right. This one did shift it to the left, and if you'll notice, the scale here is 20. So each one of these little hash marks is a 5. So look, you can see it's been shifted to the left 7. So that's why it would be that one. All right, number 6, again, same thing. Let's go back to our y equals. Clear it out. This time, second square root. This time I have 15 plus 3x. And let's see what that graph looks like. Again, it looks like it's been shifted to the left. It didn't. This one looks like a good possibility. This one is going the wrong direction. This one doesn't have this correct shape, square root shape. And this one's just a straight line, so it's not that one. And you'll see that this graph right here has that same square root function as ours in the calculator. And then the same exact thing for number 7. You'll put the square root of 8x minus 6 in your calculator and graph it, and then pick which one of the graphs that it matches.